evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your primetime destination. Newsmakers, talking points. Our big talking point tonight. Donald Trump's verbal googlies are stumping India day after day. His remark on election funding being given to India is now being tangled. Many believe in needless politics. That's going to be the big question, and we'll tell you really where has the money of USAID gone. Also, we'll have the latest on the tragic Telangana tunnel collapse. 8 people are still trapped. And a day after Pakistan's Champions Trophy debacle to India, we'll tell you just what's gone wrong with our neighbours across the border when it comes to cricket. But let's turn to the story that's breaking at this moment. 8 people are still trapped inside the Srisailam left bank canal tunnel in Telangana. Inflow of water and mud has obstructed the rescue work. Sadly, Uttarakhand's rat hole miners who helped when there was a tunnel collapse in Uttarakhand 2 years ago have now been roped in. The 6 rat hole miners are at the site. 6 more are expected to reach tomorrow. But the story that's breaking at the moment is coming from Telangana, where the NDRF and now the rat miners are still engaged in a rescue operation trying to find the trapped 8 miners. Okay, let's go straight across first to the NDRF. DG is joining me at the moment. Piyush Anand is the DG NDRF whose team is there right on the spot. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Anand. What is the biggest challenge you are facing at the moment to rescue the trapped miners, sir?
My friend, you will be aware that this is a very complicated situation because the incident has taken place almost like 14 kilometers deep inside the tunnel. So, I mean, the complications arise because already it is 14 kilometers deep, number one. There is a lot of water which is still steeping in. There is a lot of slush, a lot of silt is there. So that has really added to the complications.
How many of your team members are involved actually in the ground operations?
So we were the first ones to react as soon as we got the information. So we rushed our teams from Hyderabad and from our battalion headquarters in Vijayawada. So finally we were able to reach there the same day, and we have 4 teams in place. And our commandant who is there based in Vijayawada, we also rushed him there. And apart from that, we knew that something similar had happened in Silkiara. So the unit, the commandant who had operated there in Silkiara, so we rushed in from their battalion headquarters, which is in Haldwani, Rudrapur. And we, rushed him from Rudrapur along with his team members to this scene of incident. So as of now, we have 4 teams and 2 commandants who are there at the scene of incident.
You mentioned just now, Mr. Anand, you were successful in Silkiara and Uttarakhand, though it took more than 2 weeks for the operation to conclude successfully and rescue the miners there who were trapped there. Is this rescue operation way more difficult because of the slush and the mud on the site?
For us, every operation is tough. And I'll not be doing my job properly if I compare 2 operations. But as I mentioned previously, this has got many challenges. So this is equally challenging, if not more.
But people on the ground, Mr. Anand, are fearing that hope is dimming for the trapped workers. Do you remain hopeful that you can still rescue the workers, that they are still alive?
Look, we always believe that there is hope, and we will try to the last possible extent to try to save these people. So we never give up hope, and that is not in our motto. We always try to the last point.
We are told, though, that the rat miners team arrived this evening. They were the ones who were the heroes in many ways in Uttarakhand. At what stage will you involve them fully in the rescue efforts?
You may already be aware that MHA, that's the Home Ministry, is actually coordinating this whole operation very closely. So apart from NDRF, Air Force, Army, Navy, they are all involved. Air Force has been regularly running helicopter sorties to transport different teams from Hyderabad to the scene of incident. And DMA is coordinating the whole operation. And they have also sent experts who were there, who were operating there in Silkiara. And as a part of that team, they have also sent the rat hole miners who were involved in those operations. As and when they will be involved, I think it's an operational decision which is based on the situation on the ground. So as of now, it's very difficult to say when they will be used, how they will be used, because we have to be prepared to handle all sort of situations which can arise in this disaster.
Right. Mr. Anand, for joining me right here at the top of the news, I appreciate you joining us, for giving us all the updates. We hope and pray for your success and your team is able to save all the trapped workers. Now, our correspondent Abdul Bashir has been on the ground. In fact, right where that tunnel collapse took place, he sent us this report a short while ago.
It has been more than 60 hours and rescue operations are still ongoing at this Srisailam left bank canal tunnel project where the accident of collapse of ceiling had taken place, and 8 workers, including one site engineer, a project manager, and 6 workers are still stranded. Now here the NDRF team, Indian Army, Indian Navy, every department had made their attempt to assess the whole situation. And they were able to understand the situation is that the tunnel boring machine, a 200-meter long machine, had been struck inside due to continuous inflow or seepage of water and mud. A 160 meter of this machine had been crossed, but the last 40 meters is where all the teams are finding difficulty. Now, considering this particular situation, the Telangana government has roped in the teams that have worked for the Uttarakhand Silkiara tunnel accident site. Now, team of rat miners have been called in. 6 members of rat miners have gone inside the tunnel where the accident had taken place and are trying to assess the situation to make a plan which will be executed to rescue these 8 members.
Abdul Bashir there reporting. Remember, it's the rat miners who the government, in a way, both in Telangana, the centre, is now turning to, hoping that they can perform another rescue act. Let's turn to our top focus from there tonight, because this is a controversy that is snowballing on a daily basis. It started with US President Donald Trump claiming, as he often does off the cuff, that $21 million were used to improve voter turnout in India. Trump questioned why was the money going to India. That sparked off a slugfest between the BJP and the Congress. Today, the Congress cited a finance ministry report which said that all the funds given by USAID had been given for specific projects that had nothing to do with election funding. So there you have the Ministry of External Affairs saying the charges are serious, and the finance ministry virtually downplaying the charges. The Narendra Modi government is claiming it will look into the claims made by the Trump administration. The problem is Donald Trump keeps changing his mind on a daily basis. First he said it was 21 million, then he said 18 million, then he said it was given to his friend Mr. Modi, then he said it was given to India. Even so, some reports say the money actually went to Bangladesh and not India. So has India jumped the gun? Do we have a little bit of egg on our face? Here's a report.
$21 million for voter turnout in India.
4 statements in 1 week made by US President Donald Trump send Indian politics into a frenzy. Trump quoted a social media post by the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to claim allocation of $21 million by USAID to increase voter turnout in India.
$21 million for voter turnout in India. What do we need to spend $21 million for voter turnout in India? Wow, $21 million. I guess they were trying to get somebody else elected. Well, we ought to tell the Indian government.
even as Indian and American media fact-checked this claim to point out that the $21 million aid was to Bangladesh and not India, came more statements from Trump, each one different from the other.
And $21 million for voter turnout in India. Why are we caring about India turnout? We got enough problems. We want our own turnout, don't we? Can you imagine all that money going to India? I wonder what they think when they get it. Now, it's a kickback scheme. $21 million going to my friend, Prime Minister Modi in India, for voter turnout. We're giving $21 million for voter turnout in India. What about us? I want voter turnout too, Governor. $29 million to strengthen the political landscape in Bangladesh. Went to a firm that nobody ever heard of. $18 million for helping India with its elections. Why the hell? Why don't we just go to all paper ballots? Let them help us with their elections, right?
The BJP started by attacking the Congress right after Trump's first statement claiming a bid to influence Indian elections. Soon the Narendra Modi government stepped in, assuring a probe.
USAID was allowed here in good faith to do good faith activities. Now suggestions are being made out of America that there are activities which are in bad faith. So it surely warrants a look. And if there is something to it, I think the country should know who are the people involved in the bad faith activity.
The Congress demanded a white paper on all payments through USAID. Party leader Jairam Ramesh on Monday cited an annual report by the Finance Ministry for 2023-24. It said USAID is currently implementing 7 projects in collaboration with the Government of India with a total budget of roughly $750 million. In the current year, USAID has committed $97 million. The Congress pointed out none of these projects funded by USAID involved voter turnout.
Trump says 21 million to India, entire BJP, entire RSS, and half of media starts dancing to his tunes. Now he says, no, it's not 21 million, 18 million, stunned silence. What's going on? And now that Trump is insulting not just the Prime Minister of India, but he's insulting India. What are the steps the Prime Minister is taking to restore the dignity of us as a nation?
The BJP rejected the Congress claims. It said the projects mentioned in the Finance Ministry report are government-to-government partnerships. The ones under the scanner are USAID funding allegedly routed through George Soros-linked fronts and NGOs. The question is, how true are Trump's statements, given the contradictions in his claims? The American president is known for firing salvos at his political rivals in the United States. This one seems to have had some serious fallout thousands of miles away from home. Bureau Report, India Today.
What impact then is all of this having on Indian domestic politics? But more importantly, how is it playing out in the Ministry of External Affairs that has to handle the delicate task of managing Indo-US relations in the age of Trump? Who better to answer that than my colleague and diplomatic affairs editor, Geeta Mohan. She has a news show, World Today, up at 10:30 every night. You've got to watch that. But Geeta, this is now getting to be a bit strange, if I may use the word, and that's a word I'm using politely, because every day a statement comes out of Washington and it sets off a firestorm in India with no evidence on the table yet of $21 million being given for election funding. So we're actually debating an issue without even the money trail known to anyone else. MEA, ministries after ministries are getting tangled in it. What does the MEA have to say?
Well, absolutely, Rajdeep. The fact that there is no fixed money trail that we can really look at to assess where did that money come from and did that money come to India at all. This is domestic politics of the United States of America, Donald Trump playing to his constituency. USAID and the entire controversy revolving USAID had nothing to do with Bangladesh or India per se. It had to do with the fact that there was money being used, dispersed to various countries, projects that were of no use to America. And that's where it started from, after which there were statements that were made. If you ask me, Ministry of External Affairs did make a statement because there was an official statement made by none other than President of the United States of America. Should they have reacted so early on without having looked into the details?
Hold on, where was the official statement? Donald Trump has made remarks, right? But those remarks, as of now, are not backed by any hard evidence.
But it's a statement by the President.
So, does
If Rajdeep, if it was a statement in media reports, then MEA says these are media reports, speculative, we shall not respond. But when the head of state or a minister says something, then that's official statement. They reacted, but should they have waited to see the documents? I think they should have waited.
You know, just to ask you that, the documents are there in the public domain. It's not as if USAID is some slush fund that's operating, because, the way it's being portrayed can damage Indo-US relations if today we start suggesting, as, even the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, seemed to suggest, that these are somewhere, serious enough charges that USAID acts, we expect them to act in good faith. Are we questioning the funding that's coming in through USAID, which is used by various projects in this country?
No, but a lot of it was not in public domain, and a lot of it has been archived, but quite a bit of it we've not been able to really see.
But it is documented, right?
It is documented. It is for sure documented.
Government to government.
It is government to NGOs too.
But the government has to know where the money is going, surely.
Absolutely.
I mean, it will come through the Reserve Bank of India.
Because there's accountability. They have to know. They have to know where the money is going, how it is going, and the reason why Indian government has said, according to them, these are the projects, which is agriculture, welfare, and health, but nothing to do with elections.
So, what do you expect, therefore, the MEA to do now? Will they ask for a response from Washington, or will they go through the documents? What are MEA's options?
I think Dr. Jaishankar has already made it clear that they are going to look at the fact that this is what has been accounted for by the Indian administration. And if there are details and the president is saying things like money was sent for elections, then they would seek more details.
Okay, we'll wait and see what those details are. Geeta Mohan, for telling us why the MEA finds itself in a bit of a bind on this. Thank you very much for joining me. Okay, let's just then look at where the numbers are coming from. Now, India today has a data intelligence unit, and the good thing is that the data intelligence unit seems to be moving faster than certain government agencies in this country. We actually have tried to find out where the funds of USAID go. And here's the news. There are no records, repeat, no records of US fund allocations for voter turnout in the last decade. Records do show that over $14 million were given under the head Democratic Participation and Civil Society between 2013 and 2024. Take a look at this explainer by our Data Intelligence Unit reporter, Piyush Agarwal. Take a look.
USAID gives funding under various categories like healthcare, education, governance. The elections purpose, which comes under the governance category, has received $121 million between 2001 and 2024. Now, out of $121 million, only $14.6 million were earmarked for the purpose elections and democratic participation and civil society. Now, if we'll divide this amount into two categories, less than $500,000 were given for elections category. This amount was disbursed between 2013 and 2018. And this amount was given to CIPS, a non-profit called Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, as an implementing partner. The remaining $14.1 million were distributed among 8 implementing partners, including National Democratic Institute, which received highest $7.6 million, RTI International, and other enterprises.
Interesting. Given those numbers that we've seen, none of them seem to suggest some major funding given to destabilize India. Let me raise the big questions. Have Donald Trump's verbal googlies, and I'm calling them verbal googlies intentionally, stumped India? Are Trump remarks getting needlessly tangled once again in politics here? Is there any proof on US bid to influence Indian polls? These are some of the questions that I want to raise. I'm joined by T.P. Srinivasan. He's former representative, United Nations, Washington, D.C. By K.C. Singh, former secretary at the Ministry of External Affairs. And Irfan Nuruddin is professor, Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, tracks South Asia very closely. I appreciate all of you joining us. K.C. Singh, to you first. What's your sense? Is this a storm in a teacup? Have we got egg on our face by immediately reacting to what Donald Trump said and now finding there may be no evidence, at least hard documented evidence, to back the claim that United States was funding Indian elections on voter turnout?
Look, Rajdeep, we've dealt with Trump for 4 years, the last time he was president, and we know that he indulges in fact-free politics, he splashes facts around, and the Indian thing is only one part of it. Look at his exchanges with Ukraine. He says he's given $500 billion, and I want that many minerals back from Ukraine. The facts are that he's given only about 120 billion, and the EU have given more than that. So, he just distorts figures. Therefore, it's always dangerous to immediately react when you hear something coming from him. Either like Brzezinski, you contend it. There is a reluctance in New Delhi not to do that because then he gets very upset and you get into an altercation with him. Or you just put up, now you take the so many $1 million for condoms in Gaza because Gaza, it was going into Israel, it was going to West Asia. The confusion is that the Gaza, which is mentioned there, is Gaza in Mozambique. And the condoms were going to fight HIV/AIDS. It had nothing to do with Gaza and West Asia. So what Elon Musk has done, he's unleashed hundreds of these technocratic kids who are working for him. And they're going and pulling figures out, not knowing the context, not knowing the larger reality, that this is a program started by JFK in 1961. And JFK called it the developmental decade. Every country has it. We have a foreign assistance program. And in that, democracy was always a part of it because US wanted to spread the message about free markets and about democracy. It's not a secret.
No, but is it possible that as a result, some of the money that was supposedly meant to promote democratic values could have gone to NGOs, which is then used by in this instance, the BJP to suggest this was being done to benefit the opposition, destabilize them? Or is that simply barking up the wrong tree?
Rajdeep, MHA monitors it. You would have seen over the last 2-3 years, they've taken away the permission of a number of NGOs to receive foreign funding. They're very closely monitoring. It's not External Affairs Ministry. MHA is closely monitoring all flow of funds. So if there was nothing on their radar, then certainly I don't see what is the brouhaha at the moment, because it should have come up at that stage. They're like a tooth comb, CPR, this and that. They've stopped the funding of anyone, even seen as marginally critical of the government. But something that was seen as affecting democracy, they've gone after it.
Mr. Srinivasan, what's your view? Has the government of India ended up overreacting and without documented evidence to back these claims that actual money was sent, $21 million was sent to India, which in any case is not a very big amount to influence an Indian election, for God's sake. Do you believe the government of India could have handled this better? Or do you believe there could be something more that could come out in the weeks and months ahead?
I agree with Casey what may have happened. But one thing I can say is that this is against the USAID, not against India. President Trump is wanting to close it down, and he wanted to enumerate lots of faults made by USAID. And in the process, he found this figure somewhere and pushed it out.
No,
and
so we are getting tangled in his domestic politics. That's exactly it. He wants to cut back on USAID, and we are getting the blowback.
Let me also tell you one thing. India is not one of the major aid receivers from the US. I remember when I was there was a Burton Amendment which used to come to the Congress every year. And we used to fight it tooth and nail. There's a resolution would say, cut down 10% of assistance to India for human rights violations in India. And when we found out there was no USAID at all activity in India, we were not an aid receiver at all. But still, we were fighting a shadow, thinking that we are getting it without finding out whether we are actually getting it or not. So finally, we decided not to fight it because we are not receiving any USAID at that time. And there was no point in fighting a huge battle in the Congress. So such things happen. But I think Mr. Jaishankar's point is valid. We have to look at it, and this is deserving a consideration that he has to say for the sake of the president. I don't think
No,
there'll
but
be any
he's
more
saying,
skeletons
I
in the
just want to
cupboard.
understand, surely this documented evidence of money coming from USAID, which is an official government body of the United States, would be available to our ministries? The Home Ministry would monitor it, the Ministry of Finance would monitor it. They've come out with a report. You know, this suggestion that America was in some cloak and dagger manner operating seems a bit strange, doesn't it, to you? This foreign hand bringing in George Soros now?
Yes. Yeah, right. No, that's all create headlines in India. That is why it happens. But as I said, the Burton Amendment where we are fighting without even knowing whether we are getting any US aid. So similar thing will appear. This money may have gone to Bangladesh or it may not have gone to anybody else. But this will come out. I don't think we need to worry too much about this allegation.
Okay.
It's a
So,
anti-USAID position.
Is this, though, Irfan Nuruddin, Elon Musk and Donald Trump at play using the Department of Government Expenses because they want to cut down on government expenses? We are told today 1,500 people have been served termination notice in USAID in Washington. And India is getting tangled in the domestic politics unleashed by the Trump-Musk duo. Is that the sense you get in Washington?
100%, Rajdeep, as your esteemed co-panelist said. I mean, this is American domestic politics. It is an attack on USAID, and more generally, it is an attack on America's role in the world. I mean, at the end of the day, the idea that this money spent, as your colleague Geeta Mohan said, was characterized as not being helpful to America is false, right? What Kennedy and every president after that understood is that America's power in the world was because of soft power. This is money that goes to help poor people around the world fight malaria, to fight hunger, starvation, and increasingly in recent years, to build market linkages, build entrepreneurship, etc. So what Trump and Musk are against is all of that. But look, what happened over here is you had Trump essentially talking, as Ambassador Singh said, factory politics. He's shooting from the hip. And what is the real claim over here? There are two claims. One is that money went for voter turnout. That in and of itself, even if it was true, and it's not true, even if it was true, is not inherently controversial. Having more people participate in elections is a good thing. But the second thing he said was, first he said, this is for going to my friend, Mr. Modi. The second thing he said is they wanted someone else elected. It is that second statement that is completely irresponsible on the part of Mr. Trump because there's absolutely no evidence of any of that. And for the Indian government, for the pro-BJP side, from Amit Malviya and the IT cell, to seize on that is actually a second issue that we have to talk about, which is that it taps a deep insecurity within Indian politics right now about the role of civil society, about the role of a free media, and the notion that any funding going to train media journalists, just looking at the information on your screen, on our screens right now, the kind of projects that are funded, or to fund voter turnout is inherently anti-Mr. Modi, inherently anti-government, and therefore inherently anti-India is deeply problematic. At the end of the day, every paisa that enters India to from a foreign fund to an NGO is more scrutinized over the last decade than at any previous time. This is incredibly impossible. It's impossible to imagine that money in the amounts of millions was flowing into India to NGOs under the current government's watch, and they have absolutely no clue as to how the money was being spent or what the memoranda of understanding were governing that. If that's true, that's actually an admission on their part of gross negligence. And I don't believe that that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, but you're saying that the whole notion of America getting deeply involved in enhancing voter turnout seems, prima facie to be a bit strange in the context of India. But KC Singh, documents show that it has gone to Bangladesh, which had an election, and then there was the controversy over the manner in which the election was conducted, eventually led to Sheikh Hasina leaving the country, a students' revolt. So this notion that America is interfering, you see, there is this subtext that America wants to interfere and destabilize governments in South Asia, and that's being preyed upon. Do you believe that there is a genuine fear, or is this classic foreign hand started by Indira Gandhi in the 1970s, now taken to another level by the Modi government?
Look, it's been talked about openly for a long time that they were unhappy with Sheikh Hasina. That's not a secret. And when she went, very clearly, India has hinted, everybody has hinted that there is an American hand in this. But nowhere does it say that the US government, the last one or this one, wants to remove Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi is one of the most pro-US prime ministers India has had. Why would they want to replace him? Replace him with what? A government and a UPA government. You don't know what the policy of that government may be.
The BJP says it's not the US government. This is the deep state, the likes of George Soros.
George Soros can send his own money. Nobody is claiming it's his money that has come. They're saying it's US government's USAID money, for which they are accountable to their legislature, and people are accountable here who are receiving that money. So it becomes so. But this foreign hand thing is a very old gambit. It's not new. Anytime any leader feels he needs a stick to beat the opposition with, you pull out this argument of a foreign hand. Though at the moment, Mr. Modi is under no threat from the opposition at the moment. So I don't see what was the need for it, unless the idea is keep the opposition as suppressed as you possibly can.
You know, that's precisely the point, T.P. Srinivasan. You've dealt with America over the years. This is a period when there is a bipartisan consensus between Republicans and Democrats to have a pro-India approach to relations in South Asia. The old-style hyphenation of India-Pak is over. They've de-hyphenated it. India is the focus. So why would anyone in the US want to jeopardize that relationship using USAID? And then when George Soros' name is tossed around, it seems that it's only used to keep the pot boiling. Should the government of the day be telling these IT cell warriors of theirs, lay off? You're only embarrassing us.
No, talking about somebody trying to influence the elections, he is aiming at Biden, because Biden is not supposed to have had a good relationship with India. And therefore, there were these rumors that he was trying to declare India non-democratic, etc. So he used that. But the whole thing, as I said earlier, is not aimed against India at all. This is a cost-cutting exercise, is to paying and looking for evidence. In fact, even all this, the most ridiculous thing is there was confusion between water and water, whether this was for water's turnout or to improve the water supply situation in India. So that is the amount of ridiculous interpretations being given. So I don't think it is a serious matter to be, considered.
So how should we just ignore? Are you saying, Mr. Srinivasan, we should ignore Donald Trump may well come tomorrow morning and say, look, I've given $25 million in, the previous government gave $25 million to the Modi government for allegedly issues related to democracy. Should we just ignore the man? Is that the way to do it? Can you ignore the President of the United States?
Yes. Yes, in this particular case, you can. You can at least wait till he comes back. I don't think we'll hear about it anymore.
Irfan, you're smiling through this. You're in Washington, so you probably know a little bit more about the way Donald Trump operates. Should the Indian government deal with him, be ready at times to just ignore what he says rather than react every time Donald Trump opens his mouth?
If we all have to learn how to ignore Donald Trump, or we're going to go insane over the next 4 years. But the Indian government has to be secure in its own policies, its own regulations, off-the-cuff allegation that has been contradicted by the president himself, as your reporting suggested, 4 different statements that get the facts, that change the facts. We cannot be reacting every time he says something. The next thing he might say might be something that's about PLI, it's about manufacturing. He called India the tariff king, right? The truth of the matter is that Donald Trump says what he thinks his audience wants to hear in a given moment. We have to know what is actually true, and we have to do the facts. You asked earlier whether or not the IT cell should be told to calm down. It should. Think of the position that those tweets are putting the MEA in. If Dr. Jaishankar wants to do a serious probe and come out, the facts are going to show that there was no malfeasance over here. But the narrative construction being conducted by other elements supportive of the government will suggest that any such finding is prima facie incorrect, cannot be believed, because they've already linked it to George Soros. They've already linked it to all sorts of other sorts of allegations. So a serious government is secured in knowing what exactly is happening in its own country and can say, we know, we have vetted. No money comes from USAID that does not get vetted through here. We know who the recipients are. There are records on the books. We know when the money was spent.
Right.
We know USAID projects are incredibly detailed about the exact activities to be done. So even something called voter participation could simply be helping people understand, how to read the news, how to understand polls. That is not nefarious work, right? And there should be documents at MHA for each of these contracts. And if that's not, that's a separate set of issues that we should be asking why our government is allowing money to come in under the rules.
I want to give Casey 30 seconds to wrap this up for us. Should we have a white paper at all, as is the opposition in India is now calling for? Or should we just now let sleeping dogs lie, let Donald Trump say what he wants and not react? A quick reaction from you.
I said, look at the irony of it. Who is saying that voters have been increased in the state elections? Is the opposition claiming it? That the ruling party has done it in Maharashtra, in Haryana, and so on and so forth. The ruling party is not saying that the opposition's increased the voters. Well, I think the lesson is that as long as Trump is president, he's already being domestically attacked. He'll be sufficiently weakened, some say even within weeks, if not months, because in town hall meetings, people are standing up and questioning even Republican congressmen. So there is a huge churn which is taking place. In the meanwhile, keep your seatbelts tightened. Do not react every time Trump says something, but also do question them. Don't go silent. Right. You don't need to provoke him, but you can't also let it pass, because you are the largest democracy in the world. You can't be just sitting silently, nor using it to attack the opposition. So I think the lesson is treat it with a degree of confidence in your own nation, quietly contradict him. By the same time, be ready for some more shocks as we go forward.
Okay, we'll leave it there, KC Singh. Hopefully, some of the BJP's IT cell warriors and indeed the opposition is also listening. The last thing we want is to get Indian politics tangled in actually what is a policy debate taking place in the United States, and Trump using it to target his rivals there, and then we end up embarrassing ourselves in the process. Thank you very much to my guests for joining me. I want to turn from there to one of our special reports tonight, which is coming from my part of the country. The border between Karnataka and Maharashtra has often been tangled in the area around Belagavi. As tension simmers once again over the linguistic issues, both states have stopped bus services to each other. Why? Well, first, a Karnataka bus conductor was allegedly targeted for not speaking in Marathi. Later, a Maharashtra bus was attacked. Take a look at that long-standing simmering feud over the border dispute between Maharashtra and Karnataka.
The dispute between Karnataka and Maharashtra over Belagavi turns ugly. Bus services between the two states are halted after tensions over the use of Kannada. A conductor on a Karnataka State Road Transport Corporation bus was assaulted last week for allegedly not communicating in Marathi.
मेरे को कर्नल सीखने को बोल रहे हैं ऐसा बोल के कितने लोग थे सर वो उनका गांव में कम से कम बोला तो बस में तो 6 से 7 जने बस में छेड़ के मेरे को मारा और नीचे 30-50 लोग था सब ऐसा मेरे ऊपर हमला किया.
One of the bus passengers, a minor girl, later filed a counter complaint alleging harassment by the conductor. As anger over the incident spread, a Maharashtra State Road Transport Corporation staff was allegedly targeted in Karnataka. In retaliation, buses with Karnataka registration were defaced in Maharashtra.
They were talking in Marathi. He told that, I don't know Marathi, you talk in Kannada. At that time, that boy and 2-3 others, they beaten our conductor. Police arrested, and they have given, court has given for custody, for 14 days custody.
With bus services Between the two states hit, ordinary citizens are the worst hit.
कर्नाटक-महाराष्ट्र की बात है वो राजकीय लोगों की बात है, वो लोगों को राजकीय बात में नहीं करना चाहिए। आप एमएसआरटी और केएसआरटी से बात करके वो चालू करो। पब्लिक को बहुत तकलीफ हो रहा है, छोटे बच्चे रहते हैं, डिलीवरी औरत रहता है, उनको बहुत हैंडीकैप रहता है, बहुत तकलीफ हो रहा है उनको।
The Karnataka Rakshana Vedike has called for Belagavi Chalo March on Tuesday. The boundary dispute between Maharashtra and Karnataka dates back to 1956, when the states were reorganized on the basis of languages. Maharashtra claims Belagavi, which has sizable Marathi-speaking population. A petition filed by the Maharashtra government in the Supreme Court is pending since 2004. With Sagai Raj, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's just switch to the world of cricket, because Rohit Sharma and the men in blue have planted one foot firmly into the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy with a comprehensive 6-wicket win over Pakistan in Dubai on Sunday, in a match that eventually turned out to be a one-sided affair. Virat Kohli's century led India's chase. It was his 51st century in the one-day format. And the fact is that as Virat made all the headlines, Pakistan is making the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Across Pakistan, there is plenty of hand-wringing. What's gone wrong with Pakistani cricket? And that's the question I want to pose to Farishte Aslam. She's a Pakistan journalist based in Karachi, and I'm also joined at this moment by Nikhil Naz, our consulting sports editor, who is at the moment in Dubai on his way to Lahore. First to you, Nikhil, because I know you've got a flight to catch. It appears that the Pakistanis also are all set to go back home because they're not going to progress in the Champions Trophy. They just weren't good enough, were they, yesterday? India in another league.
Absolutely right, Rajdeep. In fact, if you look at the two teams now, and this is something that even the staunchest of Pakistan supporters feared, that, you know, they were hoping for a Pakistan win, but they were hoping against hope. And they knew at the back of their head that it's going to be a massive task for Pakistan to beat India. But in the manner that the Pakistan team capitulated, I think that's disappointed most fans here as well. It was, you know, being built up as the mother of all battles, the big clash, but in the end, the contest that we were all building it up to be, it turned out to be a no contest. You could see it, and I'm not even looking at, you know, the margin of runs or the number of deliveries left. That's another thing. But just everything else about the match. You know, Pakistan had this big partnership. There are 100 for just 2, but just look at the manner in which they were batting. Less than 6 and over, somewhere around 4 and over. Look at India. Cruising to victory, yet the batters that are coming to bat are ensuring that you're batting at 6+ and over. So it's not just about the margin of victory, Rajdeep, but even the mentality where one team has the fear of failure quite apparent, but the other team is not just playing to win, they're actually there to make a statement, and that's what the Indian team has done. So there is a big gulf, and as I said, you know, this is something that people were fearing, and this could have been the last straw. I know every time they were hoping that, okay, Pakistan can turn a corner, maybe this time they'll upset the Indian team, but now pretty much every Pakistani fan that I've spoken to has conceded that there is no competition. As far as Indian fans are concerned, I spoke to a lot of them. They're saying this isn't even the rivalry that they really bother about. Those butterflies in the stomach that you would have, Indian fans would have in the 90s, right, 80s, early 2000s, they say no more butterflies. India, Australia, give us India, Australia any day.
You know, let me take that to a Pakistani fan, journalist Farishte Aslam. Farishte and I are on a WhatsApp group, and I know lots of you are berating the Pakistani team. What, you've had 4 board presidents in the last 4 years. You've had 26 selectors in the last 3 years, 4 captains. What's wrong with Pakistani cricket at the moment, Farishte?
What's right with it, Rajdeep? I think Pakistan has to do a deep dive into finding that spot where they can admit to themselves that there is a lot that has to be corrected. The rot starts from the top, we know that, And if they can get that right, that is the first step.
So is it a talent pool deficit on the field? Because we don't even see that efflorescence of talent, especially in spin bowling and batting, or is it an administrative problem?
It is completely administrative. And even in the past, Pakistan cricket succeeded despite the administrative flaws and not because of the genius organization that was served up. But today what has happened is that I think there's too much reliance on past cricketers and what they have to say, because not every cricketer, however good he was on the field, is an able administrator. And certainly Pakistan has suffered because of that. In rotation, everyone has been tried and nobody's come up trumps. No, Pakistan has to do a lot of deep searching. They need to figure out how cricket does not need to be handed over to bureaucrats. Bureaucrats, politicians know nothing about sport, and they need to take a leaf from global. I know India follows the politician route, but that's not quite the right thing to do on a sports field. So
from what you're saying, Farishte, the talent exists, but the politics and the bureaucrats have taken it to have taken over the sport in a manner that talent is not allowed to flourish. Is that what you're saying?
Look, as we said on that chat group, if you put this lot that's in charge right now, you put an 18-year-old Inzi in front of them, he can bat all day, they will not be able to recognize his genius. You put a 17-year-old Wasim Akram in front of them, and they'll say, "Ye kaun aa gaya? Isme to kuch bhi nahi hai." Because they just don't have it in them to recognize talent. You need sport needs to be managed by people who know sport, by people who understand players. And I think in Pakistan, there's none of that right now. And Pakistan is plus planning for the long term. I bet you now our next tournament, I think, is 6 months away. And nobody's planning for that right now. They'll start planning for it 1 month before. The grounds go into disrepair. Nobody's planning. I mean, this Champions Trophy was on the cards. Why were the grounds not ready till about 2 weeks ago? What Pakistan needs is a long-term view. I mean, every cricket team goes through it. I remember a time when Australia was so completely dependent on Alan Border. There was nobody else, but Alan Border batted them through. And they worked on their cricket. They worked on Shield cricket. They made things happen for themselves and gradually became the champions that they are. India, paucity of fast bowlers, set up MRF clinics, first in Chennai and then all across India. And look at the benefits of that. There is nothing like that happening in Pakistan.
And the sad news is, of course, the greatest Pakistani cricketer arguably is in jail. And this is a moment where even if you don't want Imran Khan as your prime minister, you certainly want Imran Khan to hopefully show the way to the Pakistan cricket team, at least to fight. I think the one thing that stood out for us Indian fans is the complete lack of fight in a way in this Pakistan team, the lack of intent and the fear of failure that Nikhil Naz spoke about earlier. But look, Farishte, I hope we can rekindle those Indo-Pak cricket rivalries genuinely. I hope that the Pakistan cricket team reaches the stage where you will have a competitive match with India, because there's nothing better than that. But for now, I guess a lot of soul searching to be done across the border when it comes to cricket. Thanks very much, Farishte, for joining us. I hope someone out there is listening to you and sharing your angst. Lots of angst when you lose in an Indo-Pak cricket match. Now